Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here. Welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through drawing these two poses and talk to you a little bit about that. Let me first say that if you share the video, it helps me progress the channel. And also, if you decide to work along with this project, you can also tag me in the posts. A couple of my favorites are Twitter and Instagram. I'll make sure there's links below. So without further ado, let's jump on in. So with this first pose, I kind of do it a little bit more unorthodox. So if you've been watching the channel, I've been talking to you in previous videos about using a boxing in method, okay, and that helps with perspective. In this particular one, I forego that altogether, and it wasn't really intentional because I just sometimes do this out of habit because this is kind of how I draw a lot of times now, but I thought it might make a good example anyways to show you that since I didn't use the foundational base workup, I had to make more adjustments to proportions. So you'll see the next pose is a bit different. Now, the other thing is, if you notice, I drew this character by segments. So by segments, I mean, I drew the head, I drew the shoulders as separate pieces, the upper arm as separate pieces, and yada yada. So what happens is, I'm using each piece to kind of proportionalize the next piece. And we'll go back to that when I refine it. But now with this next pose, I'm gonna use the stick man or stick woman or stick person method and draw out the lengths. Now, this is really the more ideal way to do it because what happens is you're able to focus on proportions right off the jump, and you're also able to think about gesture a little bit more. And you can see it's still skewed. The one leg was way off, still a bit off, but I don't worry too much about that. In fact, I don't worry about perfection at all. So a lot of times people will chime in and they'll say, this is off, this could be better, this is wrong. That's fine. But I don't let that factor in when I'm drawing or practicing as far as like, oh, I gotta get this leg just right. I feel that if I do that, it slows me down and it kind of stagnates my progression. We're all different, so you gotta make that judgment call for yourself if that's kind of the way you work. But I feel like if I strive for perfection, I'm not gonna do as much. And I tend to get better through the journey or through the process of repetitive, revisiting different parts of the body or just drawing lots and lots of poses basically. So now I'm refining this one, and you can see I didn't have to adjust proportions nearly as much because I did the stick person kind of build up. I was able to define the lengths and proportions. Now I still have to rework things and go, okay, why does the leg look a little awkward? Can I adjust little parts? I'm still moving little bits and pieces around as I refine it, but for the most part it was already there from the base initial sketch. And then, hands are always tricky. I tend to redraw hands at least 2, maybe 3 times, especially if it's a pose I'm not used to doing. And then what do I do when I can't get the hand right? I go right back to cylinders. So, a lot of times people talk about the base information, and they say, well, I don't need that cylinder, that primitive shape stuff. But if you find yourself struggling, it always helps to go back to those primitive concepts. Okay, so now as I refine this first pose, I just want to tighten up the line work. And you see I'm just using a little bit more line weight as I go through it, but I'm also shifting some of the lines to a little bit more angular. So typically when I draw male characters, especially superhero male characters, which is typically what I do obviously, I use more angular lines. Not to say that there isn't some organic and curves in there, because it's obviously all a bit of balance, but typically with the male characters I use more angular lines, with the female characters more smooth and curved lines, just to convey male versus female. Alright, so still making adjustments to this, but a lot of it's pretty much in place. And I think that what happens is as you practice more and more of these poses, it's not that you're not going to make changes, but you're going to get better at kind of getting the base information kind of close, and then you just have to make smaller and smaller changes. It's why you see really prolific or advanced artists, they look like they just draw it on the page without even thinking about it, without any workup. It's just because you really don't know the amount of repetition they've really put in, just thousands and thousands of revisits to similar poses and anatomy structure, and who knows what they've studied and how long it took them to get that advanced. So never gauge yourself by looking at somebody else's work and go, wow, they just seem to know what they're doing and it just seems to flow right out. Again, you just don't know how many sketchbooks they've really filled up doing this stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. It's always fun for me to do. It's a great way for me to practice and share the work. I'd love to know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.